Welcome to Gumption. We're talking about Anne of Green Gables today. And we have a quote. Anyone who has gumption knows what it is, and anyone who hasn't can never know what it is. So there is no need of defining it. Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Go, Lucy.
So,
So I'm Kelly McClymer,
yeah,
and she's Aurelia.
yeah.
His last name I totally am blanking on.
Casey.
Aurelia Casey.
I make life as confusing as possible. It's okay.
And we are as organized this week as we were last week. I
That's
apologize
true.
in advance for that.
But it's more fun this way. It's more spontaneous
It
and
is.
authentic.
It is. And sadly, Trudy will not be joining us because she is not feeling well. And I think Aurelia said it best. That's the wrong kind of gumption when you show up when you're not feeling well and make everybody else sick. But she wouldn't do that.
She wouldn't make us sick because we're all in different places, but it would make it take longer for her to recover. So, and we're probably going to be disorganized next week too because I'm moving on Tuesday, which is the day before we do the recording. So it's going to be exciting, but
it's going to be a while before we're really together.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Because we have gumption, we'll get there.
So, what's your favorite part of Anne of Green Gables?
Well, like I said, when we picked this topic, I've read all of the Green Gables books. I read Anne until she was a mom, and the end of the series, because once I love a series, I read it all the way to the end. I know some people gave up when Anne went to college, but I hung in with her when she got married and had children. But I'm still, my favorite is still the first couple of books when she's that lost orphan who doesn't know what she's gotten into, and she's trying so hard to fit in, and she's, just can't seem to do anything without making somebody mad.
Yeah. I think my favorite is actually the college years.
What did you like the best about that?
Well, I like the dynamics between her and her friends when they're living at the place. They named it a place. There's like the two ceramic dog statues in this like house. It's like there's three of them and they share this townhouse that they're renting from someone. And I like that dynamic, but I also like the competitiveness that's continued from elementary school between her and Gilbert, and how that sort of morphs, and there's like bits of jealousy that's less academic and more relationship like I think they first realize that they like each other a little bit when they're still in school, but when they go to college, I think they realize that there's a possibility. Well, they realize, I think, that there's a possibility that they might not end up together. Like when you're in a little town and everyone knows that like you liked each other,
and everyone's decided you belong together. Yeah.
Right. There's like it's almost a little bit inevitable. So I've been watching When Calls the Heart, which is, and if you like Anne of Green Gables, you will like When Calls the Heart. It's about a little coal mining village called Coal Valley, and there's a school teacher who is the like heiress of some wealthy business owner, and she decides she doesn't want anything to do with her legacy. She wants to go be a teacher and make a difference, which takes gumption, when you grow up in privilege in a big city and then you go to a little coal mining village where she can't cook and she like can't sew, and it's adorable. But
so she is a lot like Anne.
Yeah, she is a lot like Anne, which is why I said if you like Anne of Green Gables, you'll like this show. But she and this constable like fall in love, and then spoiler alert, another woman shows up.
Oh, big surprise.
I know.
If it's not another woman, it'll be another man. That's always what they do.
Well, yeah. So okay, so they have both. At various points, but it's funny because like everyone else realizes that this is more of a problem than they do. So like I think if Anne and Gilbert had stayed where they were without going to college, they wouldn't have realized they would have just like settled for each other instead of realizing that they were actually right for each other. Does that make sense?
I think I see what you're saying. They wouldn't have realized. They would have felt a little bit
Like obligated to
like they've never had that adventure and that freedom to choose, that it was
right,
other people pushing
right.
them together instead of them knowing they belong together.
Which
I
I
guess
think is a
that's
little bit
true.
of a heroine's journey too, actually, because they end up picking what their little town wants them to pick, but they don't pick it because their town wants them to pick it. They pick it because they want to pick it, which is sort of like, someone who is domestically inclined. Sometimes people who have those talents are pressured by the people around them to always be cooking for everybody else. But sometimes they just like cooking for everybody else. So it's a
Yeah, you always want to be able to have the choice
end
because,
result is the same, but the process of how you get there is different.
yeah, how you feel, like if you feel stuck or if you feel like you're where you belong.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of Anne's journey in every book is, when you start your life not knowing where you belong, it's important to you to feel like you belong and to feel like you're wanted where you are. And I think in a relationship, that's always true. You
Hmm.
want the person to want you, not just go, oh, fine, everyone else says we should be together, so we might as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that leads to problems too. Like if you settle for someone just because everyone thinks you should, that's that's when you set yourself up for like your partner knows that you are with him or her just because everyone expects you to be together. And then they wonder, do you really actually want to be with me or are you just is it just an obligation?
That's true.
So, yeah.
I think I get what you're saying. I think that's the one thing that Anne, was always in her story, was she was never going to just settle for anything.
Yeah.
She always wants to make it the best it can be.
Well, she was also always very active and energetic and
Positive, really, in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
Well, and she was always trying to do the right thing even if she didn't know how.
Exactly.
So even when she's young, she's making trying to make a cake and she fails epically. But the intention is always
Well,
good.
she was trying, yes, she was trying to be do the right thing, like you're saying. And, it's easy to relate to that when you're reading the books, because you have enough times in your own life where you tried really hard to do something and it didn't turn out at all like you expected it to turn out.
Right. Or you thought someone would appreciate it if you did something, but then they got mad at you instead,
Yeah.
and you're left feeling like, but I wanted to be nice, and now you're mad at me.
How
Um,
did that happen?
yeah,
Yeah, I've had plenty of times like that in my life.
yeah,
And I think that's why Anne was one of my favorite heroines, because I really related.
yeah. I read all of the books in one big dose, and I haven't really gone back to them much.
Well, that's the advantage of a series that's finished before you're born. Um, and for me, I remember, I forget when I read them, but it was was probably middle school or high school. I found them pretty late, I think.
Yeah, I think I read them early.
And I remember being shocked that the author was so old, when I finally read about the author, and it was like, she wrote them that long ago, but they didn't feel like they were written that long ago. I mean, even though they were set back, in the early 1900s, they didn't feel like they were written back then.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the language isn't dated.
And the
Like
emotions were so.
sometimes, like if you read Huckleberry Finn or like Mark Twain's writing tends to be very dated because he's using a dialect for the speaking voices of his characters that dialect has fallen out of use mostly.
Right.
Whereas Anne, everyone there has been taught King's English, Queen's English. What would it have? What time period was all of this happening? Would it
I
have been
think it's
Queen
the early
Victoria?
No, I thought it was the
Or
early
was it?
1900s. Let me look it up and see. But I thought it was early 1900s.
Because in Canada, I think they still teach the same way they teach British stuff, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I should learn more about Canada, considering my sister is doing
It was
her
written
college
in
there.
1908. When does it occur?
If she wrote it in 1908, it might have been contemporary for her time. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. It's not saying here. Wikipedia is letting me down.
I always sort of assumed that it was a similar time period to the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, but that could just be because I read them the same year.
I don't think so, because I thought there were cars when Anne was growing up. So I thought it was early 1900s,
There
but
was
I'm not sure.
trains, but I don't know about
Well, trains would
cars.
have been 1800s. Could have been 1800s.
There were trains in the Laura Ingalls Wilder books
I
too.
wonder if it just doesn't really say.
She might not have specified, assuming people would know it was sort of modern for when she published it.
Hmm. It doesn't seem to say. But I thought that by the time she was grown up that there were cars. Oh wow. Anne of Windy Poplars wasn't published till 1936. Anne of Ingleside wasn't published until 1939.
I think Anne of Ingleside is the one where I stopped.
And Anne of Green Gables was 1908. Anne of Avonlea was 1909. Anne of the Island was 1915.
Oh, there was a gap there.
Yeah, there's a huge gap.
I wonder if that had to do with anything leading up to the war, or maybe she stopped writing because she was doing college herself or something. I don't know. I've never really studied her
That's a really
biography.
good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I wonder if she based Anne off of her own experiences in any way. I don't know.
It says, Wikipedia says, the novel has been very popular in Japan, where it is known as Red-Haired Anne.
That's funny because Annie, Little Orphan Annie, the musical, she's red-headed too.
Yeah, that's true. In Japan, it's actually included in the national school curriculum, and it has been since 1952. That is interesting.
That is interesting. It would make sense as a book to teach English, though.
In Japan, Anne is revered as an icon, especially since 1979, when the story was broadcast as anime, Anne of Green Gables. I haven't
awesome.
seen that. I want to see that.
We have to go find I'll find a link to that.
Japanese couples travel to Prince Edward Island to have civil wedding ceremonies on the grounds of the Green Gables farm. That's so interesting. How do I not know that?
I don't know, but you
I
do
never,
now.
yeah, no, I mean, I have to, I have to see if I can track down that anime. That would be interesting. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about a time period. So I think it must have been right around the same time as Lucy Maud Montgomery lived. So early 1900s.
Yeah.
That's really
I
interesting.
didn't
There have
read
been
it
a
far
lot of
enough
movies.
to know if there was ever any mention of the wars, though. Did World War
I
One
think
ever come
Gilbert
in?
went, I thought Gilbert did go to war.
Did he?
I
I know
thought
he was
he
a
did.
doctor, but I don't. And I remember him being a good doctor, and I remember Anne having a scary pregnancy with, I think, their youngest. But this is, me trying to remember something I read 15 years ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at what Wikipedia has to say. Well, they both got the scholarships at Queen's Academy, like you were saying.
Yeah, and that was a fun part.
Competition?
Yeah, because they were both trying so hard, and then they both had reasons to like give it up to each other. Um,
Yeah, because Matthew died. Anne decided to be there.
yeah, and I think they both ended up teaching, or
They
was that
did.
a? They both ended up teaching, but one of them taught in the school that they had gone to, and the other one didn't. And I think Gilbert was supposed to teach at their school, but like let Anne do it instead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yep. There's the other woman. I don't remember but Gilbert apparently contracts typhoid fever.
In the army?
No, as a result of physically exhausting himself during school. And so Anne,
That sounds like BS.
yeah.
How do you get a fever from overexertion?
Well, you don't get typhoid fever from overexertion. You get typhoid fever from bad water. But okay, so at that point, when he got sick, Anne had just refused a proposal of marriage from Roy Gardner. I forgot that part. And then she's shocked to learn that Gilbert may die. Then she realizes she loves him and has always loved him. Okay, so then he recovers, presumably from her laugh. No, she was Lucy Maud Montgomery was never that sappy. Okay, so yeah, they're engaged as Gilbert finishes his medical course, but yeah, there's nothing about the war. I could have sworn he went to war.
Maybe she was pretending that the war hadn't happened.
Oh. No, maybe it is back in the 1800s because this says their married life is very happy and they have 7 children. Joyce, also called Joy, died as an infant. James Matthew, Jem, Walter, who dies during the First World War.
Oh,
Anne and Diana, twins. Shirley, the youngest boy, and Bertha Marilla, called Rilla. As the series ends, finally a date. It is 1919. So, okay, so when
okay.
Anna's young, then that's in the late 1800s.
I wonder then if instead of being inspired by her own life, if she was inspired by her parents.
That would be interesting. Did
That
she
would be
have
interesting.
did she have 7 siblings? How many siblings did she have? I don't
I
know.
have no idea.
Let me see if Wikipedia knows. Oh, so it was funny because we had decided we were going to talk about Anne of Green Gables today. And I was watching this TV show I like on Canadian TV, the Murdoch Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
In the States, it's called The Artful Detective, and they don't get the latest
It's on
season yet.
Netflix as Murdoch Mysteries, though.
Yeah, it is, and but they don't have the latest one. The latest season, you have to get that through the Canadian channel. So we got that specifically because we wanted to get the most up to date. And so on the Murdoch Mysteries, it's an interesting TV show if anybody ever happens across it. It's a detective who apparently made every single possible discovery. Like he is always checking finger marks, and he created a night scope camera, and they look they must have fun when they write and design this program, because the things that he creates look like something that they would have created back then to do what he says to do. So they'll be big and blocky and made of wood and weird looking, but you could still believe that they would do what they say they do. So Murdoch is the detective, and his sergeant and his sidekick detective, George, is an aspiring author as well, and he wrote this science fiction novel with monsters and all this other stuff. So he always talks about so during this episode, he decides he's going to teach a writing class. And so it probably one of those local community classes like they still teach nowadays at the high school and everything. So he's got like 4 students, and they're all challenging him. And then you could see he's about to give up the class and just say, forget it. None of you are serious. We're not doing this. And this attractive young woman walks in. Then, oh, woo, okay, now I'm going to teach the class because she's cute, which is very George. And so she sits down, and he likes her, and she says her name is Lucy. And then you get a few more details. She's writing a family drama about an orphan girl. I think I know who she is. And so it turns out she's Lucy Maud Montgomery. And so George is trying to help her write her book. And he suggests, she might want a little more action in it, maybe a ghost or two. And he says very strongly, I think you should think about changing it from Anne of Green Gables to Dan of Green Gables, because male protagonists sell better. But
he's trying to turn Anne of Green Gables into a sci-fi novel. Actually, that would be a really interesting premise. I would read that.
Well, when does Anne of Green Gables go out of it? Probably never goes out of copyright, because you could do like the Pride and Prejudice with zombies that's just got turned into a movie recently. Yeah. You haven't heard of that?
I have heard of it, but I haven't read those or seen them. But yeah, that could be a thing someone could do.
I haven't read them, but I saw an ad for the movie, which I'm not going to see either. But apparently, it's very popular. I mean, people bought it and enjoyed it.
It makes sense because Pride and Prejudice is popular, and zombies are popular.
Yeah, I still don't see it, but maybe one day I'll watch the movie.
I can understand why other people would want to watch it. I'm not a huge zombie person. I don't know. Mindless creatures trying to attack you isn't something that really appeals to me. I find it far more fascinating when the adversaries are intelligent.
Well, it would be interesting to see the different siblings in Pride and Prejudice handle the zombies. And I don't know, because I don't know very much about it, but I'm sure 1 or 2 of them probably turned into zombies. I don't know.
Probably. I don't know.
I'm thinking that youngest daughter.
The one of those that I would watch is the Abraham Lincoln one. I would probably read it first. Except that I have so many things to read. I discovered a new book club today.
I listened to that on a trip across country as an audiobook. It was very interesting, but quite strange. Well, it has a lot of history in it, so I love history. And I really like that particular era with
Mm.
Lincoln and some of the, you know, some he had such an interesting backstory in a kind of sad, tragic way.
Yeah.
And they dealt with it, I thought, pretty well, even that he was a zombie hunter. Or wasn't he a vampire hunter or
Vampire
something?
Hunter? Yeah, something like that. They made it into a movie too.
I didn't see the
Yeah.
movie, but I did hear the audiobook.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I thought they did a incredible job of building a Lincoln that was believable.
Well, it
And it
does kind of
certainly
make
would
sense that
explain his
if there
darkness.
were vampires, he would be the type of person to go fight them. I mean, if he was
Exactly.
so much against slavery, it would make sense that he would be against vampires too.
Yeah, that's true. I think the backstory was that it was a vampire who had actually killed his mom, not
Oh,
bad milk. So
yeah. Interesting.
oh
I have to
no,
do
her
research
mom
into
died when
vampires.
so Lucy Ball Montgomery's mom died when she was 20 months old, 21 months old, and so her dad gave her maternal grandparents custody to her of her.
Oh, so it is sort of parallel to her story, to Anne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because her grandparents were Alexander Marquis McNeil, which is kind of similar to Matthew, and Lucy Wooler McNeil. Oh, she was raised by them in a strict and unforgiving manner. But she didn't have siblings,
Hmm.
which kind of makes sense why she would give Anne 7 children
Yeah.
to really fill her family up.
Well, and she might have wanted to have lots of kids if she had grown up as an only child. I think
Yeah.
people who have only child experiences tend to want more kids, and people who have lots of siblings tend to want not to have lots of kids. At least that's my experience of it.
She was a teacher. It says during her teaching years, Montgomery had numerous love interests. As a highly fashionable young woman, she enjoyed slim good looks and won the attention of several young men. Oh, in 1889, at 14, Montgomery began a relationship with a Cavendish boy named Nate Lockhart.
I feel like I've heard that name before.
I don't know, I like the name.
It's a good name.
It is a good name.
It's probably Nathaniel, right?
Oh, probably. I'm just trying to see where if she got married, but she flirted with a lot of people and broke. It sounds like she broke a lot of hearts. Ooh, ooh, interesting. Um, she remained in correspondence with one of her beaux, but he caught the flu and died in 1897. So you
Mm.
wonder if that might be where the scene where Gilbert almost dies was
Yeah.
inspired. Oh, so she did get married. Oh, okay, this is exactly what you were talking about, though. She accepted this proposal out of a desire for love and protection, and because she felt her prospects were rather low. Not a good reason to get married. Oh,
Yeah.
and it sounds like she just broke off her engagement. Oh, and then she just stopped looking for love. That's sad.
That is sad. It's understandable though.
Well, especially once she could take care of herself. Oh, wait, did she get married? Who are the McDonalds? Oh, no, she did. Shortly after her grandmother's death, she married Ewan McDonald, a Presbyterian minister. Interesting.
That sounds
She
not
had
very
3
exciting.
sons, so she did have children. This She did not sound like she had a very good adult life. Okay, this is depressing.
Yeah.
Okay, but Gumption. Here she shows Gumption. Montgomery was engaged in a series of acrimonious, expensive, and trying lawsuits with the publisher L.C. Page that dragged on until she finally won in 1929. So she won.
Oh, that must be why there was that long gap in between the second and third
Yeah,
books,
that would make sense.
if there was a lawsuit going on. And that could be why she stopped looking. Like if she was busy with work.
Yeah, and
Especially in
after
that
that she
time
wrote other
period,
books.
it wouldn't have been well supported to expect a woman to have a career and a family life at the same time.
That's
She would
true.
have felt like she would have had to give up her writing career and give up fighting this lawsuit if she had gotten married. So she might have been delaying on purpose.
Although it's interesting. So it took her 15 years to go back to Anne. She claimed she got tired of writing about Anne. But again, I think you're right. Pressures probably kept her from it, not to mention that. But she did go back and write. And, a lot of authors do that. They get tired of a character, like Sherlock Holmes got killed by Conan Doyle, and then he got resurrected when the fans complained, and Conan Doyle realized he needed to bring him back. Um, it's sort of like the actors, like Star Trek, or the big cult type TV shows or movies where people are like, want the actor to be that character, and the actor doesn't want to be pigeonholed, and then 10 years later they're like doing appearances as that character because they
Like the
now want to
Star
be.
Wars people.
Yes.
Yes. Which we're talking about Star Wars next week, right?
Oh, I forgot. Yes, we are. The new Star Wars, right? Or are we going to do the whole thing?
Well, I
I
think the
guess we
old
can.
Star Wars will come up in our discussion of the new Star Wars. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That's another interesting character, an interesting female character of great mystery. With we don't know where she comes from, but we think we do. Okay, you're making me dizzy. What are you doing?
I'm not doing anything. What?
You're moving all
Am I?
around.
Oh.
I
That's
mean,
because my laptop.
I've only had half a beer. There's no way.
No, it's my laptop is on my lap. So like if I move my
Oh, okay.
knees, then it moves.
Ooh, stop moving your knees.
Sorry, if I laugh, it like jiggles.
All right, so here's a question. So, as an author,
Hmm.
how would you feel if you created a series that was as beloved as Anne of Green Gables, where like your town or whatever town that you put your stories in would create like a little memorial to you, and people could go and actually visit that place? Would you think it was cool, or would you think it was creepy?
I think it would be cool, but I don't know that I would ever like. I think I would feel obligated to go to the opening of it, but I think I would never go back ever again, just because I would be scared of raving fans mobbing
Oh,
me.
but wouldn't it be fun to like dress up as someone else and go in and hear what people were saying?
Yeah, yeah, it would be fun.
It's dangerous too.
I'm not sure I'm very good at dressing up as other people, though.
Well, you just have to see by then if you created such a successful TV series, you'll have enough money you could hire a makeup artist. And then you have to tie the makeup artist up until you're finished on your so that they don't go alert the
That's
tabloids.
true. That's true. Yeah, I wonder how J.K. Rowling deals with that.
She has a lot of control over Pottermore and
Well, but
Universe.
I think she still wanders around. Like she still, according to the interview that Oprah did with her, she still takes public transportation. Like she
Well,
doesn't.
but that's the good thing about an author is we just look like people. Most people aren't going to recognize us.
Well, but I think she's an exception to that.
I don't know. I mean, even some actresses can just go to the grocery store. I had when I worked at the university a few years ago. I worked with some grad students who came out from LA. It was a married couple, and they had worked in a grocery store in LA where they had celebrities always coming through their lines. And they said it was really interesting. They had these tricks that they would just like do their hair a little bit different, put on, a different kind of glasses or whatever, and just really like sort of tone themselves down so that people wouldn't look at them.
Hmm.
They said there were a couple of people who didn't, but that was because they wanted to be
They
noticed.
wanted to be noticed.
Yes. But they said they were surprised because they would know who it was. But, because they would see them over and over again,
Right.
and they never said anything about it. But they said it really wasn't that much of a change where people would just not look at you. So I thought that was interesting. Like a different kind of makeup, a different kind of hairstyle. I don't know. That was
That
probably
is, I
15
mean,
years ago.
you can do a lot with how you do your hair and makeup and style to change
Well, and
whether or
I
not
think at a
you're
certain point,
noticeable.
if you're famous enough that your photograph is going to be worth a lot of money, then I mean, and J.K. Rowling is probably that famous at this point.
Yeah.
Although she's known for really going after the tabloids. And I think Britain is more protective of its people. They
I
don't
think
like the
Europe in
tabloids as
general
much.
is more protective of privacy than the US is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe the paparazzi don't because I know she was really mad one time when they got pictures of her children and she
Yeah.
managed to get those because that would be scary, I think. But even
Yeah, well,
so,
because that would, I mean, if people know who your kids are, then that changes how they treat your kids, and that changes how you can raise them. And I think you can see this with US celebrities. A lot of the kids of those celebrities end up doing horrible, awful things and getting in lots of trouble because they don't have the same sense of what's acceptable and what's not because they're in a different world. They're in a world where money gets you out of everything. And so it doesn't matter what you do because, well, the money will just fix it. And I think J.K. Rowling is the type of person who wouldn't want that to affect her kids
no,
in that way.
definitely does not want to raise her children that way for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, I do think authors in some ways are lucky is that they can have the type of celebrity she has without everybody knowing who they are the minute they step on the street.
That's true.
Because they're not in front of the camera, they're
Yeah.
not reading the
I
books.
wouldn't I wouldn't recognize George R. R. Martin, for example.
There are lots of authors I wouldn't recognize. And some I've met.
The ones I would recognize are the ones who are doing video stuff regularly. Um, but even then, I think it's different in person than on a hangout. Like right now, I can see your head and your shoulders, but I have no reference for how tall you are in comparison to how tall I am
Oh,
because
I
I've
think
never met you in
context is
person.
everything too, because you would not expect me to be in your grocery store. So if I was in your grocery store, you would probably say, that person reminds me of Kelly, but you wouldn't think it was me.
Well, unless I knew you were in California.
Yeah, no, but that's my point.
Right.
If you're not expecting me to be there, you wouldn't expect it to be me. Yes, if you knew I was visiting, then you'd be like, okay, how come you didn't tell me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting because in all the time I've been writing, I've never wanted to be like super famous,
Hmm.
but I have wanted my characters to be super famous. Like, I kind of like that when you talk about J.K. Rowling's books, you talk about Harry Potter. That's your touchstone reference. So, you can say Hogwarts, and you can say Harry Potter, and you can say Hogsmeade, and you can say Dumbledore. And those all mean so much more than J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, that's true.
She created all of them. They wouldn't
That's
exist
true.
without her, but those are the ones. Those are the
And
people that we
like
love.
you were talking about before with actors, um, Daniel Radcliffe is never going to be anyone but Harry Potter to everyone.
I'm
And I
sorry.
think he
I'm
had a
sorry,
lot of
Daniel. I apologize for that. We don't mean to put you in that box, but you are there.
Yes, we do mean to put him in that box. What are you talking about? I mean, I think he's had a lot of difficulty finding like work as an actor because everyone looks at him and is immediately Harry Potter, you know? And I think it's
Yes.
unfair, but it's true.
Well,
And that's
and
why
that's
I'm
what I
always
was talking
impressed
about.
by
In
people
10
like
years from now, he's going to love being Harry Potter. And, he will probably have broken out and created some other roles, but, he'll come back and be fond of it because it will have given him all his wealth. He's not a
well,
small
only if
thing.
he manages it well, which I know nothing about. But
No, me neither.
I'm always impressed by the actors who can play heroes and villains and mentors. People like Ian McKellen and Zachary Quinto and Angelina Jolie.
Well, actually, who was in the
Because
Harry Potter movies who just died? Snape.
yeah, yeah,
Talk about an actor who could play anybody. He
yeah,
played blood-chilling villains and, mild-mannered good guys.
yeah, yeah. It's always more impressive when you, as an actor, can do that sort of versatility.
And have that plastic. And I think that Hollywood and fans make it harder for some people to be able to do that.
Oh,
But
absolutely,
but I
because
also think
they
it is a talent.
typecast, and it's not just Hollywood that typecasts. It's all musical theater, acting, and opera, everything ever. Like I have a friend who's an opera singer, and she's really amazing, and she would be really, really wonderful as like the female lead in all of these musicals. But she's skinny and short, and so she gets cast more often as the type of role that was originally written for the castrati because she can look like a boy very easily. And she's okay with
So
this, but I'm
fascinating.
not okay with this
Oh,
on her behalf.
well, that's one of those things that I do sometimes enjoy it when they turn some expectations on the head. I was just watching
Oh yeah, I have a good
something.
example of that from movies. Um, there's a version of Emma that the BBC did as, I don't know if it was a movie or a mini series. Um, but the actor who plays Mr. Knightley in that version of Emma um, is Lord Blackthorne in the new Sherlock Holmes movie that stars Robert Patrick Downey Jr. Is that his
Oh,
name?
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey. Why am I adding a Patrick to his name? I don't know. That was throwing me off. Him. So he's a fantastic Sherlock Holmes anyway. But that the first time I saw that Sherlock Holmes, I spent the entire movie in like shock because Mr. Knightley was a bad guy.
Oh,
And so
so
it
that
took
really,
me like I had to watch it a second time before I could appreciate the movie for itself because I was so distracted.
and it
But
really bothered you.
he did such a good job as both characters that it makes perfect sense that he was cast as both characters. That he was like the romantic lead in one, and then he was like this horrible evil villain.
Was it the one
And I
with
hadn't
Gwyneth
seen.
Paltrow and Jeremy Northam?
I don't know what his name is. I don't know any of the names of these people in this particular.
Because I'm sure there's more than one.
Yeah, I'm sure there is too. Let me do the internet search thing.
Because I'm looking, but I don't. The one you're talking about doesn't. Um, but I like it when they play even more Against. Oh, there's one that had Brian Capron in it. I don't know him at all.
See, you're doing it backwards. You need to look up
I know that's Jeremy Northam.
Sherlock Holmes first.
Oh, I didn't look up Sherlock Holmes, right? Because that was the one. Okay. And what was the name of the bad guy?
I will tell you when it comes up. And shortly. If it loads. Mark Strong. Mark Strong is the actor.
Mark Strong. Okay.
So now we'll see. Oh, I guess he's of Italian descent. He was born as Marco Giuseppe Salusolia.
Interesting.
Austrian mother and an Italian father. That's fascinating. All right, this would have been an old thing. So, scrolling down.
Oh yeah, he's
been in a lot of different things, but like the first thing I saw him in was
he was in Kingsman. I want to see that.
Oh, he's in Stardust as Septimus. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah. And so just because he had been a bad guy in the before,
well,
you
he
had a
had
hard
been
time.
well, and I had watched because I got when I turned 14, my parents got me like a collection of BBC romances, like period romances. And one of them was this particular version of Emma, and one of them was the Colin Firth version of I guess it was a TV movie.
No, he was in a lot of movies.
Anyway, so I had these were the only DVDs I owned for like my entire high school years, were this version of Emma and a couple other like Pride and Prejudice and stuff. So I had watched it over and over and over again. And then I saw
Oh wow, that was a long time ago. That was 1996.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was Emma?
It's got Kate Beckinsale in it.
Yeah, she's Emma.
She's like, I've heard her name, but I don't recognize her face from anything.
Well, she usually plays blonde. If you look her up, you'll see. Yeah, she's almost always blonde.
Is she?
Yeah.
Because her picture on IMDb is brunette.
But what are her other roles?
She's in a bunch of movies I've never seen. That's why I don't know anything about her other than Emma.
I'm trying to think. She was in Total Recall. I saw her in that.
I don't think I've seen Total Recall.
I'm not recognized. I mean, I've heard of her. I mean, I think the Underworld movies, but I never saw those. She was Ava Gardner in The Aviator. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong and she's not blonde. Maybe she doesn't play blonde. She was in Serendipity. I did see that movie.
Yeah, I think the only thing I've seen her in... Oh, I've seen Cold Comfort Farm, but I didn't recognize her from it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know she was in Cold Comfort Farm.
She's in a version of Much Ado About Nothing. I like Shakespeare.
Well, she's done a lot of stuff. She's very...
We should do an episode on Shakespeare. Do we have...
Shakespeare's Women? Oh, definitely. What's the one? The Taming of the Shrew. We should definitely do that one.
Well, there's just so many good ones. There's the Merry Wives of Windsor, too. That would be a good one to talk about.
All the women of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
It would be interesting because you wonder what
it felt
like.
King Lear. That's another good one with lots of good characters in it.
Yes.
And Macbeth.
It is very tragic. Macbeth has a very strong woman in it. That's true. I don't know about Ophelia. There's a lot.
Yeah,
I could
everyone
say
talks about her, but like, I never understood why. Like, she's just not that fascinating. Like, everyone talks about Ophelia in English class when you have to read Hamlet because your teacher tells you to. And, like, I was a really bad English student, actually, because my mom taught English, and so I'd been, whenever she had to watch any of the movie versions as research for her lesson planning, I would watch with her. So, like, I never actually read The Odyssey because I'd listened to the audiobook in the car for like 6 years in a row. And read I never really read a lot of the other books because I'd seen the movie versions. And Hamlet was one of them. There's a really good version of Hamlet that I think is a Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh does really good Shakespeare. Anyway,
Yeah, I think I read Shakespeare, but I never got as much out of it if I didn't see the movie or the play, because
yeah. So I got
the
more out of
archaic
the
language
plays
got in my way.
that I acted in. And I took Shakespeare classes because I wanted to when I had the option of choosing, because I think there's a lot you can get out of Shakespeare if you take the time to
Well,
actually
I
think
enjoyed
about it.
history, just the whole
Well, in the
Elizabethan stage.
um, you should look up the Shakespeare's Insults book. It's fantastic. It's so funny. And there's so many creative ways to insult people that don't involve using modern swear words. And then you baffle people because you can jibe at their
Right, and they
ignorance
don't have a
without them
clue
knowing.
how badly they just been
I'm a little bit of
insulted.
a horrible person sometimes. Anyway, um, but yeah, so like in English class, we would talk about Hamlet and you talk about Ophelia, and like nobody cares about her in the play. She's like inconsequential. If she had been cut out of the play still would have been excellent.
Maybe,
I
because
mean,
I think what she represents is the possibility of a future that Hamlet could have had if he wasn't so focused on finding and avenging his
but see,
father's death.
that's what I don't get because I don't see any connection between the two of them at all. I
Because
don't
there
think
isn't
that
one, because he rejects it completely.
Well, but I don't think there was ever any basis for people making that assumption. Like, I don't think she represents that kind of future because I don't think it would have happened. Even if Hamlet were completely happy and healthy and, forgave his uncle and, like, moved on, he still would have married somebody else because A, he's the king, or he would have been the king and he would have had to marry for diplomatic purposes. And B, there's no there's no love, emotional attachment between the two of them that would cause them to transcend that social barrier of him being expected to marry someone from a different country for political purposes.
And I don't know, because I have not um,
It's clear that
read it in a
Ophelia
while.
likes him as a friend, but there's no sexual tension between them at all. And Shakespeare does a very good job of making there be sexual tension when there's supposed to be, which is why I've never understood her purpose in that play.
Well, I mean, but I think that's the point. Is he's a young man, she's a young woman, and there's no sexual tension because he has totally shut that whole next generation
But it's
part of
not
his life
just him, it's
off.
her. She doesn't have any interest in him either.
Well, that's the problem I have with Ophelia as a character, is that she is really not developed, which is
She's
unusual. Shakespeare
useless.
usually does develop his women. So it'd be interesting to know if there were like Ophelia scenes that got cut. Because they're like, no, we don't need her to be a whole character.
I don't know. I mean,
She doesn't need to be interesting.
I don't
Because
know.
in some ways, she's a ghost right from the very beginning, even before she
Well,
dies.
yeah, and that's why I've never understood people's fascination with her. I mean, in a way, she is Bella Swan, but nobody ever wrote from her perspective. She's like, Bella eventually, when she gets pregnant, grows some spine, but But Ophelia is just like, okay, I'm gonna give up. It's like if you took Bella Swan from Twilight in New Moon, she's all depressed and like zoned out and just aching hole of blackness.
Right.
Like if Bella had decided to kill herself, then she would be exactly who Ophelia is. Except that Ophelia's aching hole of blackness has nothing to do with Hamlet.
Well, what do you think her aching hole of blackness has to do with?
I think her aching hole of blackness has to do with the fact that people of that time period don't listen to women, and she had no prospect. Like her purpose in life was to marry whoever she was told to marry and have kids. And there was no meaning in life beyond that. And I don't think that she was particularly interested in doing that. I think that's why there's no sexual tension, because she's not interested in being a sexual person. I don't know. I'm
That's
making stuff
interesting.
up.
I would have to go back and look at it to see, because the one thing Shakespeare is usually pretty clear with his language. When
That's
you
true.
go, and there's all sorts of clues as to at least what the character represents in the story.
Yeah, and I never bothered to read the full version, so I could be missing pieces. But I don't know. I like Romeo and Juliet and Taming of the Shrew and King Lear and Richard III and The Merchant of Venice all much better.
They're a lot more active. The one I
Yeah, I
can't
like the active
stand
one.
is Twelfth Night, Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
That
Twelfth
one
Night
just
is
drives me nuts.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Midsummer Night's Dream is overdone and annoying.
yeah. I would always get annoyed, even when I watched it play. Played. I'm like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done. I want to be done.
yeah,
This is too stupid.
yeah. Well, we should be done. Now
From
that we've
Anne of
talked
Green
about
Gables
everything
to
except
Ophelia.
Anne of Green Gables the whole time. I hope nobody got like disappointed or bored in how our conversation morphed. Because yeah. If you did get bored, you should probably not come back, because this is just how we talk. So if you had fun, then you should stick around and go to abyssinianbooks.com/gumption and sign up so that you make sure not to miss out on any future episodes, like our Star Wars one next week.
Which Trudy should be well for, and so you'll get
I
to
hope
be delighted
so.
by her New Zealand accent, which no matter what she says doesn't sound boring.
Yeah. Well, and she'll have lots to say about Star Wars too.
Yes, we
So,
all saw it, so we'll all be, and so
yeah. So if
we
you
might
haven't
have
seen
some
it, you might want
spoilers.
to wait and go see it, because you're missing out. Anyway, Abyssinian Books /Gumption. And we will be back next week.
Bye.